and so you can come to call to the public. And we are just about ready to start. It's mine. Okay. Okay. You want to switch? Okay.
I don't think it's any higher than
All right.
I'm just short. Hang on.
Ready? Oh,
I'm busy helping them with their stamp issues.
I know.
I signed my name. She signed it upside down. I said we should all do it, but I don't think Eric or I'll behave now.
We do have seats in the front, and we promise we won't bite. Oh, yeah, Jeff might. That's okay. All right, you ready, board? Yep. Okay. Welcome. I have 6:31. It is May 14th. Welcome to our governing board meeting. It's wonderful to see a full room. I know that everyone out there in TV land is looking at the back of your head, so make sure that your hair is combed and back. So we appreciate you being here. Mrs. Hahn, roll call, please. Present.
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 Here. Present.
Fantastic, thank you. For our Pledge of Allegiance, we are going to have our students from Pima Butte and Saddleback Elementary stand up and lead us in the pledge, and the rest of us please stand. Go ahead. Fantastic, thank you. That was wonderful. All right, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have an agenda. All right, that brings us to our call to the public. I do have some speaker cards here. I would like to remind you that the governing board members cannot respond to comment. We can direct staff to follow up. That's why we ask for your email and your contact information. Please remember to keep your comments appropriate, no inappropriate language, and to keep it to the 3 minutes. There will be a timer going. All right, so I have Mr. Rick Abel. Come on down. And then Jeff Kamarchak, you'll be next. And yeah, we have the handheld because
It's a really good idea.
Thank you. We're going to try it.
Okay. I'm Rick Abel. I live at 44176 West Garden Lane here in Maricopa. Coming here to speak in favor of the override proposal. And I'll talk to you first of all as a parent. I have a freshman daughter at the high school. Very proud of the education she's received at Pima Butte, Desert Wind, Maricopa Wells, and now at the high school. She has 3 years of high school left. I want it to be great years for her. Classes are too big over there. Override would help to solve part of that problem. I'm also proud to be the principal at Maricopa Wells Middle School. Tremendous staff over there, doing great things with kids. We want to provide more opportunities for kids. We want to keep and we want to recruit excellent teachers. And to do that, the override is necessary. For this upcoming year, we have support from the charter school situation. That funding is really going to help us for a year. But it's only for a year, and it's only 75% of what it should have been. Our local legislators have voted us out of the charter school business. And in order to replace that money, we need to step up as a community and support the override. And then finally, I'm a community member. I've been here for 9 years now. We've weathered some tough times. And I can tell you that as a community, I'm very, very proud of where we're headed. I look around the community, the support we've had from Ak-Chin. I think the fact that we have Banner Health here, we have CAC here, we have the Ultrastar, we have all kinds of opportunities in the community. I hear we're going to have a Holiday Inn Express soon, so I'm proud of this community. And I think that the thing I like best about it is the fact that it continues to grow and to improve. I know for a fact that there's a district that way, the Kyrene district, that takes maybe 900 kids out of this district and other districts each year, they cannot fill their schools. They need to have students from other districts go to their schools. I'm paying taxes so that kids can get on the bus and go to Kyrene. I'd rather have that money invested in our community instead. There's a question in Kyrene. They pass their overrides on a regular basis, and that's hard to figure if they don't have enough kids to fill their own schools. That means that they're not parents. Would you please shut off your cell phone? Oh, I'm sorry, that's mine. They have people who are not parents who are voting for their override. I can tell you the override would cost me about $200 per year. Over a course of 7 years, that's $1,400. I can tell you the reason people in Kyrene vote for the overrides is because that helps their community, builds stronger schools, and improves their property value. And I have a very strong belief that over the period of 7 years, my house value will go up by more than $1,400 just based upon the support that we give our schools to show people schools are important. That helps our community to grow. One other example is the Copper Sky. I've been paying taxes for that thing for 5 or 6 years. What a great investment. The city's done it very, very well. And that's the kind of thing that brings people into our community as well. You have to support the community to help it to grow, and then everybody prospers. So I would appreciate support of the override proposal. Thank you.
Jeff, come on up. Next will be Joshua Judd.
My name is Jeff Kamarchik. I live at 22347 North Reese Drive here in Maricopa. And I come here to talk about the override proposal and request your approval of the override recommendation of a full 7 years and 15%. I have that perspective and I make that request from 3 hats that I wear. First, as a parent, I'm a parent of 3 children that are in the district, and I see firsthand the impacts of funding and the impacts that the state constraints on public education in terms of funding have, particularly in terms of class size, as Rick pointed out, high class sizes, and in terms of lack of programs, honors programs, PE, music, arts, those all had to have been cut over the last 5 years because of the constraints. And in addition, teacher turnover. We're seeing a lot of that just because of other districts are filching our teachers because of pay and other benefits. The other hat I wear is a business owner. I see that funding or lack of funding in education impacts our attractiveness from an economic development standpoint. So that impacts quality employers and quality employees to come to our community to live and to prosper. In addition, skilled and educated workforce. They are looking for places to build a family and build their homes and build their lives, and they're looking for places with quality education. And adequate funding helps deliver that. And then finally, as president of the Maricopa Education Foundation, the continued need for basic necessities, we see those in terms of grants coming into the foundation for some basic tools like technology or support or expansion of existing programs. So all of those can be resolved with additional funding and continued fighting within the community for additional funding, but fighting within the state. And I can say that as a parent, as a business owner, and president of the Maricopa Education Foundation, if you approve to do an override, you will have my full support in all 3 hats. And particularly in terms of the Maricopa Education Foundation, you will have full support from our entire board and all our volunteers to campaign and try to get that passed. Thank you.
Joshua Judd, and then Joe Holt.
Can I roam around the room now with this wonderful freedom?
Don't let the power go
Just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Chestnut and to the rest of the board for allowing me to speak this evening. There's not much I'm going to be able to say that the two gentlemen that spoke before me have not already said. It's something that we've been talking about for years. In order to have a successful and thriving school district, we need to be able to fund it. And there are a lot of misconceptions out there. There's a lot of people that assume, well, you know, they get more money every year anyways from the state. And that's actually incorrect. The funding over the past couple of years for the state is actually decreased. So when you have costs that you're responsible for as a school district, you have to be able to meet those financial obligations. And what an override allows us to do is to make things secure. For the next 7 years, if we do decide with the 7-year override, what that does is it can tell the community that regardless of what goes on in the state of Arizona, your kid's education is going to be secure, okay? And I'm probably preaching to the choir to every parent here tonight, because if you're here tonight, you care. But it takes more than just coming here. Talk with your friends about passing the override. Convince them. Have those conversations. Tell them to research this issue. Tell them if they don't believe you to look it up and look at the statistics. It takes more than just a 10-word sentence to convince someone. Sometimes it takes weeks in consistent conversation. But if you care about your child's education, like I said, because you're all here, you do, it takes a little bit more. Make sure that we can continue the great progress that we've made over the past couple of years here and give them the money they need. 7 years, secure that funding so we can expand programs, additional foreign language, additional sports programs, all of those things. It makes it a better school system. Thank you.
Joe Holt and then Murray Siegel.
Hi, President Anderson and governing board members, Dr. Chestnut. My name is Joe Holt. I live in Oro Valley, which is down in Pima County. I spend a lot of time up here in Maricopa because I am a candidate for state senate. I am here tonight because of the override proposal again, and I'm not going to suggest to the board which way you want to go on this, because I know there are a lot of things to consider here. I want people to understand that in our legislative district, Legislative District 11, we do have this school district here. We also have the Marana Unified School District, and we have the Amphitheater School District down in the area where I live. Marana and Amphi, pretty good about getting their overrides passed, and they will all tell you to a person how critical it is, given that Arizona ranks very close to the top in the United States for cuts to public education, K through 12. Over 20% of the budget has been cut since the Great Recession. So it's really critical to consider that when someone tells you that schools have plenty of money, that teachers make great salaries, that none of this is necessary, that schools should be working within their budgets just like all of the rest of us have to. I can tell you from sitting here and watching this board work over the last year and a half, they do work within their budget. It's just that the budget is insufficient. You don't cut your way to prosperity. You don't cut your way to quality education. You have to make the investment. And it will come back. It will come back as a positive return on that investment. It has historically, and it will continue to do so. So the next time that you hear someone telling you, schools have plenty of money, they're wasteful, they're inefficient, etc., show me the data. Show me what you're basing your statement on. You're accusing an entire organization of which I am not a part whatsoever. You're accusing an entire organization, people whose livelihoods revolve around teaching young people. You're accusing them of wasteful and inefficiency and not caring, and it's just the opposite. So before you take that stance, or before you let someone else say that to you, show me the data. And I wanted to thank the board for your contributions to the community. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Murray Siegel. I live in Maricopa. I teach statistics at Arizona State University. I have 40 years of teaching mathematics, mostly in public schools in Arizona and 3 other states. I think I know something about teaching. I've taught every grade level from 1 through 12. And I think I know something about the funding of education because I've seen well-funded districts and poorly funded districts. Primarily, I also, besides teaching at Arizona State, I've taught as a volunteer 7th and 8th grade a couple of days a week this spring at Desert Wind. So I also have an intimate understanding of what's going on in the schools. I also was a member of the Budget Committee and the member of the Override Committee. And I think the question has been asked, is the community prepared to vote for this in a positive way? That's the wrong question to ask. The question to ask is, how do we get the proper information to those people who will vote? A number of folks prior to me have talked about the money that the state has not been giving to us. Let me put that in another perspective in terms of university. What has happened to the tuition at our state universities over the past 6 years? Gone up. My salary hadn't gone up very much, but it's gone up. Why? Because the state is giving less money to the regents, to the universities. So they raise tuition. We can't raise tuition. There is no tuition. We have to have additional money. It's got to come from someplace. The other questions, I think, that need to be answered for people who are voting is, what benefit would I get? And of course, there are obvious benefits in terms of having a high-quality school district that have been referred to before. But another question is, what is the cost to me as a homeowner? And I think, for example, a great example is, we always state the cost per $1,000 of assessed value. Go outside, walk down the street, knock on doors, and ask people what the assessed value of their house is. They will give you the appraised value, not the assessed value, which is quite different and usually quite less. So they have no idea what the cost would be, and I think in terms of the investment of that small amount of cost to cover essential needs to get a quality education for all our children, I can see no other course than for the board to recommend and go through with this override. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. Dr. Chestnut brings us to our superintendent's report.
As you know, it's the end of the school year, almost, another week to go. And a lot of exciting activities are taking place in this next week, and we've had some in previous weeks, and we want to give some recognition to some of our students who have really done some great things. And we want to start with recognition of our Academic League participants. I want to say congratulations to them, and I would like to ask the 2 lead advisors on this, Janet Stensgaard and Jane Tiff, to come up and tell us a little bit about Academic League and get those certificates distributed.
It might be easier.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chestnut, President Anderson, members of the board. Just to give you a little overview of Academic League, this is our 8th year. We started out with popsicle sticks where kids would just raise their hand. Parents would decide who answered the question first. We've moved on to having buzzers. We have our questions that are correlated to the standards, so we feel like we've done a pretty good job of that. All of our elementary schools have participated, and we have 6 of them. It takes a lot of people to make this work. We have a lot of volunteers that work at the competitions, transportation, parents getting their kids, picking their kids up and getting them to practices and so on. Saddleback has always been gracious to, this was the 2nd year that they did the final competition at their school, and that was a big undertaking. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Felicia, for that. What we'd like to do is introduce our 5th grade. This year we did it with 5th grade and 6th grade because 6th grade came down to the elementary. In years past, it's been 4th grade and 5th grade competing. So for fifth grade, what we'll do is we'll introduce the coach, and then the students will come on up. For fifth grade, the first team we'd like to have come up is Santa Rosa. Their coach is Amy Hunt. If she and her students could come forward, please. The second team for fifth grade is Maricopa Elementary, Teresa Henderson. Saddleback is Tanya Nielsen. Students from Saddleback, come on up. Fifth grade Pima Butte, the coaches are Catherine Connor and Valerie Graham. If those coaches and students could come forward, please. All of the students were given medals. They are getting certificates also from Dr. Chestnut. And then that traveling trophy will stay at Butterfield this year. They'll probably have that in their front office, and then hopefully next year we'll have the competition and see if they can keep it in the house. Okay, and then they're going to take a couple of pictures, so if you could just stay where you are, please.
Do you want them all up on the stage and the stairs?
Thank you, fifth grade. And then we'd like to introduce the sixth grade. Santa Cruz, the coach is Karen Spielman. She could come forward, please. Any of the students from Santa Cruz. Santa Rosa, Heather Hubrich. Any of the Scorpions, if they could come forward from sixth grade. Saddleback, coach is Kevin Connell. Kevin, and any of your students come on up. Butterfield, Mr. John McGuire. Any of the Bobcats for sixth grade come forward, please. And then the two teams that went head-to-head for the traveling trophy were Maricopa Elementary and Pima Butte. Team that came in second was Maricopa Elementary. Coach is Julie Sullivan. Here are a couple Diamondbacks. And then the winner of the traveling trophy for sixth grade was Pima Butte. Kristen Ricosi and the Mustangs.
If you come up, step up on the stage.
Thank you for inviting us.
Congratulations to all of our Academic League participants. Several of those students will be on Jeopardy on national television in a few years. We're going to continue with some more recognition. if you will recall, back on April 24th in this building, we had our annual MUSD Art Walk, and it was a great evening. There was some excellent artwork on display, elementary through high school. And it was fun just to see all the quality work that our students produce. And so we wanted to recognize the winners. The work was judged. Local Arts Association had some judges that they provided, and they went around and viewed the artwork. They awarded ribbons, first, second, and third place. And on top of that, if you were a first place ribbon winner in your division, we had elementary, middle school, and high school, then you receive 2 gift certificates, or gift cards, I should say, $25 each. One is to Michael's, and the other is to the Pottery Barn. So we are going to, Mr. Beckett and I are going to have you come up as we read your name.
Mr. Beckett, can you hand, sorry, Dr. Chestnut, so I can't hear it.
Television. Third place in the elementary division from Butterfield Elementary, Jabari Friesen. First grade. Is Jabari here? If the principal is here, though. Accepting on behalf of Jabari Friesen is principal from Butterfield Elementary, Janelle Hildick. Thank you. In second place, from Pima Butte Elementary, third grade, Bella Lamis. And in first place, fifth grade, from Santa Rosa Elementary, Azuncia Wetherington. Okay, middle school. Need my glasses. Third place from Desert Wind Middle School, 8th grade, Jonathan Perez. Accepting on behalf of Jonathan Perez. Got it right here. Thank you for doing that. In second place from Maricopa Wells Middle School, 8th grade, Brittany Price. Accepting on behalf of place from Maricopa High School, 12th grade student, Bianca Sharp. Is Bianca here? Well, there it is. We'll get this to Bianca. In second place, a 12th grade student from Maricopa High School, Miguel Gonzalez. Is Miguel here? There's Miguel's work. And in first place, 12th grade student from Maricopa High School, Camille Rustart.
Okay, can we have all 4 of you just stand up right up on the high step there? We'll get Dr. Chestnut in there. Let's move to the center.
Tom, you're not going to charge us a sitting here.
That's right. That I am.
Okay, can I have everybody look over here? Let's do 1, 2, 3. Do one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Good job.
Congratulations to our Art Walk winners. It was a great event. The poster was designed by Maricopa High School art students. They had a couple different versions of that poster, and that's a great annual tradition. Moving on, other events. Normally we have a student representative report, Sydney Akers, and she's not able to be here tonight, but as you know, Sydney is Miss Maricopa and is competing in the Miss Arizona pageant. We're very proud of Sydney, and she is an outstanding student and class president at Maricopa High School, and it's been a great pleasure to have her giving board reports when she could make it this year. She's a very busy student, but we greatly have appreciated her help and reports this year. Next up, we want to recognize MUSD Staff Members of the Month from Saddleback Elementary School. As you know, our tradition is to have a report each board meeting from a different school, and at that same time recognize generally 2 staff members as staff members of the month, but they have so many excellent staff members at Saddleback, they couldn't narrow it down to just the top 2. And we think that's fine. There are 4 great staff members from Saddleback Elementary School that we want to recognize tonight. I want to tell you a little bit about them. And then after I get done telling you about all 4 of them, then they can all come up and we have our certificate for them. Kelly Chenoweth is an attendance clerk. Kelly carried the load as both attendance clerk and secretary for several months during the summer and when the school year began. She did an amazing job completing both jobs until a new secretary was hired. Kelly continually makes sure everyone's needs are met. She looks out for students and has formed special bonds with many children who light up when they see her each morning. We appreciate Kelly's hard work and can't imagine not having her at Saddleback. And our other 3 staff members are a team. Kelly, Kathy, and Michelle are the full-time anchors to our special education department at Saddleback. They all carry large case loads and never complain about the work they do for our special education students. They willingly volunteer to help with general education students when they are able to do so. Saddleback tremendously appreciates their commitment and hard work. Saddleback's continued growth is largely because of the work of these ladies and the excellent work that they do to help our special education students achieve greatness. So congratulations to Kelly Drust, Kathy Fuentes, and Michelle McGinnis. And if all 4 of you would come up, we have a certificate for you. A lot of great stuff happening at Saddleback. I think the staff t-shirt this year said, on the back of the shirt, it said, "Saddleback is back," I think is what it said. So I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, moving on. Before we go on to this award, I do not have a picture of our next recipient, but I do have a certificate, which is even more important. And we are very proud of Stephanie Reinhardt. And Stephanie, I want to make sure I got this right, Stephanie. You achieved, was it Master Teacher Certification this year? And we had about 10 Master Teachers certified last year, but I believe you're the only teacher that was certified this year from the Arizona K-12 Center as a Master Teacher. So congratulations to Stephanie Reinhardt. And in case you don't know, Stephanie is the academic coach at Santa Rosa Elementary. Okay, next up for some congratulations, and that is to the MUSD Business Department led by Aaron Rausch, and for the 6th consecutive year, I believe it's 6, isn't that correct? They received a Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Association of School Business Officials International. And it's really outstanding recognition for the great work that's done in that department. So congratulations, Aaron. All of the plaques recognizing that work are out in the lobby. If you've never noticed them, Mr. Rausch tells me the newest plaque isn't here yet, but when it gets here, it'll be out in the lobby also. A couple other things to report on. On April 27th through the 30th, I had the chance to participate in the Arizona Town Hall as a participant. It's a great tradition in Arizona, which I really didn't know about until I was invited to attend, and it's been going on for about 50 years, and it happens twice a year. And they bring together about 100 people, and they talk about a public policy issue. And the topic at this particular town hall meeting was vulnerable populations, of which school-age children certainly fit that category. And of course, the product of the meeting is a white paper and a public policy paper, and I made sure that I emphasized the need for restored funding to K-12 education by the state legislature. And that was well received and is part of the final report, as well as some other things concerning K-12 education. But it was a very interesting event. I was very pleased to be a part of it.
When does that final report come out?
The draft is out, and I'm not certain if the final report is out, but once the final is out, I will forward it to you on email. Also wanted to mention that last week, May 5 through 8, we had an organization in by the name of Futures Education, and they reviewed our Exceptional Student Services Department. And they provide special education services really nationwide, not every state, but in numerous states around the nation. They've worked in Arizona for a number of years. They don't work with a large number of districts in Arizona, but we asked them to come in and do a review to make sure that we're providing an excellent educational program for our special education students, as well as making sure that it's cost effective. And we had the exit conference today, which was a verbal, and then they will be preparing a written report, and as soon as that's done, should be about 6 weeks, we'll get you a copy, and we're looking forward to their recommendations from that report. Last night, I had the opportunity to attend the Maricopa High School Annual Evening of Honors, and it was a great event. There were 275 students recognized in grades 9 through 12, with most of the focus being on the seniors. And I have to admit, this is a picture I took last year, in case you say those students aren't seniors, but I forgot my camera last night. But it was a really great event, and $2,700,000 is a new record. Last year we were just over $2 million in scholarship offers, and so it's really wonderful to see the recognition. And we'll be publishing the details, but numerous scholarships to ASU, NAU, University of Arizona, as well as many other colleges. A lot of scholarships to Central Arizona College with a Promise for the Future scholarship, a couple of national merit finalists, and just a whole lot of really excellent recognition, well-deserved recognition for our students. So that was really a wonderful event. And packed house, and the students were dressed up, and it was really a big deal. Today I attended the MEDA board meeting. That's the Maricopa Economic Development Alliance, and I'm a member of the board now. And as you know, they did a community survey a couple months back, and just in the last few days they sent that out as a press release. I know it was published in Maricopa today. I think I saw a summary of that report on Maricopa, but excellent survey that I think will give us some good information to work on. I've prepared a draft action plan to follow up on some of the areas that need improvement that were identified in that survey, but I think this will be a helpful document to us. And in fact, you have a copy, a spiral-bound copy at your computer there that shows the detail of the survey, and then there's a summary. The booklet in front contains a summary of the report, as well as some other information about META. So it was wonderful support from the business community. They paid for this survey. O'Neill Research Associates conducted it, and it was well done. And we're looking forward to continuing to work on areas to improve and continue to make progress on. So we'll be giving you more information about that as time goes on. Wanted to mention that on the 19th, the next Monday, I plan to attend the State Board of Education meeting. I discovered, in fact, a lot of superintendents discovered about 2 weeks ago that the State Board is considering increasing the number of points required for high schools to get a letter grade by 5 points for an A and 8 points for a B. And it's not good timing to announce that about, a month or so after Ames tests are given, for example, or late in the spring when we really can't communicate this with our parents and our community. And so I do plan to attend that State Board meeting. There are some required changes that the State Board has to make, and they do have to factor in graduation requirement as part of the letter grade, which we knew was coming. But the law does not say that the letter grade point total has to go up. And so that's something that I plan to talk to the State Board about, and I will keep you posted on what happens, because I don't know what will happen next. I want to remind you about the third annual 8th grade unification celebration. That's the class of 2018, and that'll be next Tuesday, 7 p.m. at Rams Stadium. So you're going to want to be there, and it was a wonderful event. Last year was my first one, and it's amazing how grown up those 8th graders can look at that event. It really is. And that's even more true at graduation, Maricopa High School graduation, May 22nd, 7:30 p.m., Rams Stadium. So 2 big events. Looking forward to seeing you there, and a real celebration for our community. Also, I know I've told you about this, but I want you to make sure you get this on your calendar. We want the governing board to attend, if you can, to the Best of the Best recognition event on the 23rd, 8 a.m. in the PAC. So students dismiss on the 22nd, and then that's really our last day for staff, and we will be recognizing our best staff members, classified staff, administrators, teachers, substitutes, coaches, volunteers, and retirees. And to be nominated, anybody on staff, you have to be a staff member to nominate someone, but that nomination form has 4 criteria. It has to be someone that's making a difference in student achievement, someone with uncompromising excellence, someone that demonstrates service to our district and dedication. And so anybody that fills out a form, that goes to the person being recognized, which is kind of nice. So everybody kind of feels like a winner, even if you don't get the top award, the best of the best plaque. It's pretty nice to just get that recognition from your peers. We had over 100 people nominated, and it's a big event. So encourage you to attend if you can. And that's all I have for now. We'll come back and talk about this later.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Chestnut. Brings us to governing board member reports. Anybody have anything?
I actually have something.
Okay.
A few things. First off, I do want to thank the Maricopa Education Foundation for that wonderful teacher appreciation dinner that they held. Although I was fashionably late, I did really appreciate all that they've done, and it was a really fun night to have all the teachers and staff get together. Kudos to the Desert Wind boys basketball team for their season, undefeated 10-0. They took home the championship last Saturday. Unfortunately, my girls weren't as successful. We took home second place, but they had a wonderful season and played very, very hard. I did meet with the student council yesterday. They had a brief meeting to talk about some of their ideas that they're coming up for homecoming, because homecoming is really early this year. It's going to be in September 5th. So they don't have a lot of time. So some of the community members met with the student council. They've got some really great ideas, and so those preliminary plans are in the works. So you'll be hearing more about how you can get involved as community. I also did attend the honors night last night, and it was amazing. the number of kids that were recognized from freshmen through high school. Those kids really worked very hard, and it's nice to be able to recognize them. This weekend, I am going to be attending as a chaperone to the Desert Wind field trip, 8th grade field trip to Magic Mountain, so please pray for me. And I just want to say, you know, it gets so busy at the end of the year, and I know that all of us would like to attend as many events as possible, and we do all try to be there, but congratulations to all the students and the teachers and the staffs and the parents that support them, because what a wonderful year that they've had, and we hope that they just continue for next year as well.
Nice.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
In attendance of the Teacher Appreciation Night, but I do want to say that I have a son who attends Barrett Honors College at ASU, who got his education and his foundation with Maricopa Unified School District. He got his education and foundation when the school was just busting at the seams. A total influx of population was coming in. This was back in the 90s. And, you know, I just want to say that I appreciate all those teachers back then. They were working on budget constraints like you could imagine. There were teachers in classrooms and they were expanding and busting at the seams, and I think Miss Anderson was one of those teachers at the time. And so I just want to say that this is his foundation, and the only reason why I pulled him out in the first place was because he was being bullied. So it just goes to show that I wish he could have continued on with his education here at Maricopa and graduated a Maricopa Ram instead of a Vista Grande Spartan. So just to add to that, I wasn't at the recognition night because I was moving him back to back home full time. Yay! And but I want to say he's a 3.9 GPA. He's doing wonderful, and this I praise, and I'm so proud of Maricopa Unified School District for being his foundation. And another thing, I just want to say I did attend the art walk. That was amazing. The thing, I don't know how these judges can possibly even choose which artist is better than the other. I was amazed at a lot of the artwork that was, that was being displayed. But two of the winners were actually two of the couple of paintings or drawings of what I would like to purchase. I am not kidding. I would love to purchase that young lady's drawing of the dog. I'm a dog lover, and I just was fascinated with that. With that drawing. I'm sure it's a treasure to the family, but if she's out there and is willing to sell, I am a buyer. So that's what I want to share with everyone. Thank you.
I want to echo Patty's comments about the amazing dinner that the Maricopa Education Foundation put on for the teachers, and thank you for all you do, and thanks to the teachers for all they do. Glad that they can be recognized. And then secondly, Pima Butte staff and students put on an amazing talent show yesterday for students and for parents, and I just want to congratulate all of the students who participated in that and showed off their talents, and thank the teachers who put their time in to make it happen. So.
Thank you. Mr. Bartle? Okay. I have a couple things. Tomorrow night is Desert Wind's last music production. It's going to be at the High School Performing Arts Building at 6:30. Mr. Wagner does an amazing job, so if you can come out and see that, that would be awesome. And then on the 20th is the middle school promotion. So I don't know if you guys have let Lisa know who's going to be there. And then on the 21st, Santa Cruz's 6th grade at 8:30 in the morning is doing a little promotion, if you can be there. I'll be there, just so that you know. And then at the high school is graduation on the 22nd, and they want us there at 6:30. Okay. That's all I have. Besides, we do have school board elections coming up. We have 2 4-year positions and 1 2-year position. Please get those applications from Pinell County School Superintendent's Office. You can download it, you can call her and have them mail it to you, but that time is coming up, and we need to make sure that we've got invested parents and community members on our board so we can continue to move forward. So please be involved. That's all I have. All right, Dr. Chestnut.
Next up is Saddleback Elementary. Principal Felicia Williams is here, and I will turn it over to Felicia.
President Anderson, Governing Board members, Dr. Chestnut, thank you so much for having us. We're very excited about being here tonight. We're here to talk primarily about our math scores for this school year. However, before we do so, we'd like to talk a little bit about our school. Let's see if I can click here. Okay, here we are. So Saddleback Elementary, who is Saddleback Elementary? Saddleback Elementary, we are comprised of approximately 600 students. So we have preschool through 6th grade at Saddleback. 67% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. Currently, we have a very culturally diverse population. As you can see, most of our students are Hispanic. Caucasian accounts for 30%. Native American would be next at 17%. African American, 10%. 2 or more would be 3%, Asian 2%, and then Pacific Islander is 1%. So we are thrilled each and every day to be able to offer kids an experience to see people who don't necessarily look like them, but to learn from each other and to live happily together within our walls at Saddleback. So I am going to hand it over to Dr. Marshall Hassan, and I don't know if many of you have met her, but she is our TOSA, and she has been a huge support this year. We did not have her last year, so we were thrilled to get her this year. So she is going to talk to you about the positive intervention support framework that we did this year at Saddleback.
Good evening, everyone. All right, our positive behavior intervention system program was implemented this year at Saddleback to provide our students with strategies for defining, teaching, and supporting appropriate student behaviors. Attention was focused primarily on creating school-wide, classroom, and individual systems of support to help improve our students' behavior. This year, although it was our first year of implementation, we have seen success with the program. So this graph shows it compares the total number of days that students were suspended at each grade level last year compared to the total number of days students were suspended this year. So we have noticed that we have been able to reduce the number of days students receive because student behaviors have been less severe this year than in years past. So we have not had to suspend students for long periods of time or as often this year. The teaching and modeling of behavior expectations from our teachers, as well as other professional staff, and the positive recognition that our students receive have made a positive impact on our climate and culture within our school. Thank you. All right.
So as I said earlier, we are primarily here to talk about our school math goal. At the beginning of the year, our goal, as reads, is by the end of the 2013-14 school year, 80% of 1st through 6th grade students will increase their DL, and that's their developmental level score proficiency, by at least 3 points above the expected growth. So what happens is every student has to take a pretest, which most of you are probably aware of. Once they take that pretest, they are given a score, and then teachers are told how much these students are expected to grow. So most students who struggled were expected to grow around 125% from where they started. So our goal was that they would score at least 3 points above that 125%, as evidenced by comparing their pre-test and post-test. So our teachers are going to talk to you about their particular grade levels, and we are thrilled to announce that our students, they all surpassed our expectations. So we had an average in some grade levels of 200+% growth. So when we printed our Galileo results the other day, we exceeded the growth expectation, and there was a significant growth across every single grade level. So now our teachers will talk about their particular grade levels. First we have, oh, I'm so sorry. First we're going to have Mrs. Tiff talk about what we did. Yeah, I'm sorry. So Mrs. Tiff is our academic coach. She is going to talk about what we did to get the growth that we actually achieved.
So we had different kinds of intervention that we implemented. Some has continued from last year. We have a math RTI block that we have first thing in the morning for 30 minutes every day. There is differentiated instruction that has taken place, of course, and that's been ongoing in previous years as well. We have implemented last year and then again this year the whole brain teaching, and we're embracing that and have had a national speaker come, Chris Biffle, who has brought the whole brain teaching to us, as well as our teachers who are just really implementing it and putting it in place. We have used Kagan strategies in small group instruction. We are fortunate to have a tutoring program during the school day in which we have an employee who is just wonderful, Mrs. Palmer, and she works with the Native American students, 3rd through 6th grade, for about 30 minutes a day. They have Chromebooks, a set of Chromebooks that those children use, and they're there for primarily math tutoring. They have used the IXL program. She uses that as a monitoring device and as instruction also, but she will pull children individually and give them that individual attention that really has helped them continue to progress and grow. We have continued the math solutions and the number talks and the problem solving that we've had in previous years, and we've had the Move On reading pull-out groups that Mrs. Shirley, who is our halftime move-on teacher, has put together, as well as Mrs. Becerra, who is a para that has worked with her, and they do a wonderful job. As we look on to next year, we're hoping to add to our math RTI block, have a reading intervention half hour, or that will take place at some time throughout the day. We haven't solidified that as to when we're going to do it or how exactly what it's going to look like, but we see a need for that. So we're going to implement that next year, but that's pretty much what we have done this year as far as intervention is concerned. So I will turn it over to Mr. Bolin, who I think is going, is this the next slide? Oh, no. Yes? Yeah, okay. So Mr. Bolin, there you go.
Good evening. As we're looking at our scores for the beginning and end of the school year, it's extremely exciting to see the growth that our students showed throughout the year. At the beginning of the year, if you're looking at the chart, 68% of the students in first grade met or exceeded the standard. By the end of the year, first grade grew to 93%. That's a 25% growth. In total, we had 58 out of our 62 students that were with us all year long. That's what this measures, meet that standard. 50 exceeded, 8 met, 3 approached, and only 1 student fell far below. So we were very excited about that. As I was looking at this data, I was really curious to see what the math intervention did for our students. So I really wanted to focus on the math targeted group. That's the students that did not meet the standard at the beginning of the year, and to see which of those students, how well they did and how well they grew. So as Mrs. Williams said, our model was for us to try to grow by 125%. If I went back through and I looked at all the data for those students that did not meet the standard, and the average growth for first grade for those students was 261% growth. So we were extremely proud of those students and just all the strategies that our school tried to implement, and just their time and energy to try to set students up for success. So it was very rewarding. Second grade, Mr. Davis.
Good evening. My name is Brad Davis, and I teach second grade. I'm here to explain how we achieved our growth in math this year. As you can see, we started out with a pretest. 78% of the students either mastered or exceed the standard. So first of all, we got together as a team, second grade team, and decided that review and practice would be the best way to get them to grow. And so first of all, response to intervention, or RTI, every time a student would take the formatives, we would divide them. If they did really well, they would go to Ms. Sosa, and she would enrich them. If they didn't do so well, they'd come to me, and I would reteach. And also, we'd slip in review questions, so standards that we've already went over, we'd slip them in just so that it stayed fresh in their mind. Second of all, looking at the morning work that we were passing out, I didn't really like it. It was just busy work. So I decided to every day make up my own morning work. And it was just practice of all the standards that we were learning at that time. And then lastly, our calendar math. In calendar math, we did this thing called spiraling up or spiraling down. And spiraling down would be anything that a review of anything standards that we've learned. Spiraling up would be stuff that we haven't learned yet, so they kind of got an idea of what was coming up. And I always made sure that it was interactive. So not only did they have their worksheets on their desk that they had to do, but they'd have to come up to the board and work out problems, and they just loved doing that. Hands would go up every time I asked for somebody to work out a problem. So at the end, we got 94 students to either exceed or meet the standard. So they did really well, and I'm really proud of them. And I'm hoping that in third grade, they retain most of the information that they've learned. And so for third grade.
All right. Good evening. I'm here to talk about third grade. As you can see from the graph, we started at 67% of our students meeting or exceeding, and then we went to 85% meeting or exceeding. As we look through the data, some of the highlights we noticed is that we started with 7 students falling far below, and then with the post-test, we went to only 2 students falling far below. And then also with the pre-test, we had 21 students exceeding, and then we went to 35 out of 66 students exceeding the goals. We feel as a third grade team that we achieved this by well planned out interventions through collaboration among the 3 of our third grade teachers. We also extended our math RTI time by 30 minutes, so we did it in the morning, and then we also had a 30-minute period at the end of the day. Also, we developed a system to spiral in the concepts that we taught throughout the year, so this enabled them to retain all the information that they had learned previously. All right, and then we'll go to 4th grade.
Hello, I am Stephanie Herrera. I'm actually a kindergarten teacher, but I'm covering for the 4th grade who couldn't make it tonight. 4th grade started at 59% meeting or exceeding the standard. And after the post-test, 81% were meeting or exceeding, which is growth of 22%. 4th grade had a significant amount of growth due to extending RTI from 30 minutes to an hour. They also reviewed the Galileo benchmark data every quarter, adjusted their RTR schedule in order to spiral in those standards that needed to be retaught. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Heather Lozano. I teach 5th grade at Saddleback, and you can see we had a 1% growth, which we are very proud of. We had the many challenges with a large class sizes in our classrooms this year, and to even get that 1% increase, we did a lot of spiraling the difficult curriculum standards into our math stations and small group instruction to give students repeated practice on those difficult standards. Although not shown on our graph, we had many students go from fall far below to approach the standards, which we also like to celebrate. I know in my class alone, I had 22 that exceeded the standard in mathematics and only 2 that fell far below. So it's a great accomplishment for the 5th grade, and we look to continue our success with our students. I was between 34 and 35 all year long. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kevin Connell, and I teach 6th grade math at Saddleback. And 6th grade is handled a little bit differently than the rest of the other grades. Even though we're in the elementary building, 6th grade still operated as a middle school model, so we were departmentalized. I think that had a tremendous impact on the growth that our 6th grade students, especially our lower students from the beginning of the year, how they increased. I think by having one math teacher, we were able to maintain that consistency. That was very, very beneficial. I have to congratulate, or thank, I should say, Jane Tift. Jane, I have a great opportunity to work very, very closely with her, and we have many, many conversations during the year. And we decided at the beginning of the year that we really, really needed to focus on the lower quarter of the class. Every year that goes by, that gap between where students should be and where they are, it just widens with every grade level that they go up. So by the time they get to 6th grade, it can be quite a challenge to get the kids to where they need to be. And we really looked at 6th grade this year as being a very, very important year before they head on over to the middle school, that we felt that especially those lower students, we really needed to get them that foundation before they took that next step. So we really focused on the bottom 25% of our students, which was approximately 12 students. And I have to take my hat off to other staff members, Janelle Hudson, who teaches language arts and social studies at our grade level. She worked hard during RTI sessions. We also had Elizabeth Becerra, who wears many hats in our building, and she helped out also in that. That allowed myself, who was a primary math teacher, to really focus with those low kids, and I got to stay with them right through. The kids deserve the credit because I had a number of students that would come in before school, after school, at lunchtime, in addition to the regular math instruction and RTI. And Jane and I, when we saw the scores when they came in, we were thrilled. Of the 12 lowest students, 10 of those 12 students significantly increased their scores. We had one student that went from falls far below to exceeding the standards on the Galileo test score. So 10 of the 12 making those strides was absolutely incredible. And above and beyond just the test scores that they had, the biggest thing that I was looking at and what I tried to talk to them at the end of the year about was having them believe in themselves. That, see, look at what we did, what you can do, and hopefully carry what you did into middle school and make your secondary education a success. Do you have a question? Or?
No, I just want to congratulate you on those scores. We've seen a lot of schools come through, and we struggle with the middle school, and especially 6th grade. You know, those kids are going through a lot of things, emotional and hormonal, and we haven't seen anything like that to date. So congratulations. You've done a really good job, and you should be congratulated.
So as I previously stated, every 1st through 6th grade classroom exceeded the expected growth expectations according to our Galileo reports. So according to Galileo's verbiage, each class's growth was significantly significant. So significantly significant. That's pretty awesome. So we were thrilled at Saddleback when we saw our math scores. And yes, these are awesome and amazing people. I could not do it without them. I appreciate them tremendously. So kudos to them, and kudos to our students and our parents for doing such an amazing job. And the last thing, this clicker is going to be the death of me, but the last thing we need to talk about are our challenges. So Saddleback is one of 2 elementary schools without a 21st century before and after school program within the district. However, I am happy to say that this year we did submit a grant, and we are so incredibly hopeful that we are approved for the 21st century program. So fingers crossed, in a couple months we'll hear great news about that. Another challenge that we do have is that we do need additional staff sometimes for our RTI rotation. So these people, they do an amazing job, but it's really hard to remediate when you have 20 or 15 or 20 kids in what we call a small group. A small group is 5 kids, not 15 kids. Mrs. Lozano talked about our large class sizes. Our 5th grade, it's set at pretty much 34, 35 all school year. And then our low parental involvement. We work on that every single day, so we are trying to get our parents involved because they truly make a difference. And then the last challenge that we have at Saddleback is our high mobility rate. When we did our grant, we calculated that we have 2 students either moving in or moving out every single day at Saddleback. We had a student enroll today, and we have less than 2 weeks left of the school year. So when we thought, okay, we're going to ride it out, we're not going to have any more new kids. Not that we don't want any new kids, but it's just really hard sometimes to see a child, go to and from. We had another parent call. She moved her kids maybe 2 months ago. She called and said they'll be back next week. These kids, they're in kindergarten, and this is their 5th school this year. So our heart breaks for these kids who move in and out, and that is one of our challenges. But despite the challenges, we're up for them, and we are excited, and we're here ready, willing, and able to serve, and we look forward to bigger and better things at Saddleback. So thank you.
All right, Mr. Roush, brings us to our monthly financial report. You want to come to the microphone? I know you don't.
Yeah, the financial report is included in the board docs, and if you had a chance to review it, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I did review it. I don't have any questions.
Very good.
Anybody else? Whew. All right, Dr. Chestnut, item C, budget discussion.
That's been our favorite topic for the last several months, and Mr. Roush knows he's going to have to come back to the microphone on this one. He has prepared 3 different documents that are in the board packet, and really gives us the overall view of our budget and where we're at, and we thought these documents might lead to some good discussion. Mr. Roush prepared the budget highlight page. I want to walk through that and then turn it over to him. If you've reviewed that budget highlight page, he highlighted changes in our M&O budget as well as our DAA, District Additional Assistant budget, are the 2 largest operating budgets that we have. And most of the stuff we've talked about. So just to refresh your memory, in the M&O budget, our revenue increases should look familiar to you, inflation factor and transfers. The student success dollars, $85,000, that was Governor Brewer's bill that really rewarded schools for making academic progress with students in the lowest quartile. There were some other things in that formula, but that was a nice amount of additional funding we anticipate next year. Under expenditure increases, all that should look familiar. The one that I don't think we've talked a lot about is the change in ELL staffing, that expenditure change. And we have fewer students qualifying in that program this year, which is good because we want to exit ELL students and get them back into general ed as quickly as possible, get their language skills up to speed. The other thing is we had a bit of a windfall last year in that the state gave us a larger grant than they should have for ELL. We asked them about it early on. They said, no, that's correct. And then eventually, several months later, they realized that, oops, they had given us too much money, but it was their error, and sometimes they make you pay those errors back, and sometimes they don't. So we need to pick up those teaching positions out of M&O fund this year. So that's the one item that we haven't talked a lot about. We didn't want to lose those 5 teaching positions, and so we retained them in the M&O budget. And then as far as DAA at the bottom, that should all look familiar to you. I just want to point out that the expenditure increases, we haven't made final decisions on that, right? We talked at our last meeting about hoping to spend an additional $200,000 on district-wide tech, $300,000 on the academic focus budget, and then we've also added the need to purchase an additional bus next year. But I know Mr. Roush was anticipating those expenditures to kind of just give us the bird's eye view on the highlights. And those are the highlights, and then I would be glad to turn it over to Mr. Roush to talk about the other 2 documents.
The document you have right now is just the summary budget that is usually presented with the preliminary and adopted budget. It's on the screen. The other document that wasn't shown that was the highlights, really the kind of the guts and the verbal of some of the changes. And again, we're anticipating about, with those particular changes, $31.4 million in the general fund or M&O fund. And we typically budget for the total DAA. Again, it used to be unrestricted and soft capital. And but we won't be spending all the DAA this year, and again, $2.3 million will come in because of the charter funding, and again, 63%. That's 63% of the amount we would get. I think some of you know that it was thought it was going to be 75%, but the state kind of didn't.
We thought it was going to be 100%.
Well, Well, first we thought it was 100, and then we thought it was 75, and then it came up to be 63%. But we're fortunate we do have funding in that DAA for a while. So that's that document, and that's just a working document. So that's not the preliminary budget, and that's not the adopted budget. So that's kind of a pre-formula document. So that is some projections. The next document you asked for was the reserve document, and Christian, could you put that up, please? No, one of the other attachments to the work study. Thank you.
Aaron, while he's doing that, can I go back to you're going to change the screen?
Yes.
But on expenditures, you have projected, and you've got off to the side of your comments, assumes no raises after 2015. Is that all staff? What's that pertaining to?
Pardon me?
In your comments, under expenditures, it says projected. And then in your comments to the side, it says assumes no raises after fiscal year 2015. Is that just a projection? Is that across the board?
Well, you have to make some assumptions to do these projections, and that's just an assumption I made. I could make assumptions that there were raises, and that would raise other expenditures, and then would be less money that would be going into other funding. So whenever you do these projections, you have to have some assumptions to base it on. So I think that's yes. I think that's the financial report, and I think you do have a copy of the reserves. Yeah. So the question was, wanted to go over those reserves, and I provided that in that attached document. And again, I think that's our monthly financial report. Thank you, Christian. And but it's not quite the document we wanted, but thank you.
Yeah, we've got it, so you can go ahead.
Right. In that document, again, it's just a projection of where we are right now, and then where we will be at the end of this fiscal year. There's approximately 135 different funds, and I highlighted the main funds for you. Some of them are operational funds, and I noted that in the legend. And some of those, like the DAA, can be somewhat operational if it's transferred over. So the main intent for DAA, again, is for non-salaried things. Thank you. Thanks, Christian. And every fund has a little bit different operating guidelines and protocol. So again, we have some fund balances, but they can only be used in certain ways. For instance, the food service fund has to be used for food service operations legally. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
The funds in yellow, you say can be used for general operations.
Mm-hmm.
Can you define that or give me a better idea what general operations are?
Well, in school districts, maintenance and operations, general operations are what goes on with staffing in the schools, supplies, materials, non-major purchases, non-building purchases, not purchasing major equipment. It's just the operational, day-to-day type things, supplies, equipment, some leases, things like that.
Could it be used for technology, like computers and Chromebooks?
Some technology it can be, and normally that's purchased out of another fund, the DAA, technically.
But could it could be, but could it,
Some could,
some could?
by definition. Normally it's done out of our DAA fund, but some could be.
Okay.
There's accounting codes that the state establishes, and yeah, we adhere to it. And
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm asking
Yes.
if it's legal to buy like Chromebooks
Some.
or technology with the general operation.
yeah, generally that falls under the DAA.
Those general operation funds, those
Yeah.
can be used for salary as well?
We can use some of those general operation funds for salaries, yes. Mhm. For instance, the civic fund, Civic Center, it's for facility use. We do pay, for instance, some custodial cost out of there, but not per se operational. The indirect cost fund is a fund that all the indirect costs of grants and other programs are legally put into, and we can use those for operations and salaries for the district too.
Go ahead.
Yes, anything in yellow is generally can be used in that legend highlighted.
Mr. Roush, but that 570, does it have to, if it's a salary, does it have to be a cost incurred because of a grant?
It's a percentage that is calculated based on our overall budget, and it's just a percentage of the programs. So it goes into the fund, and then we can use it for it's mainly done because grants cost the district money.
Right.
There's direct expenses and there's indirect expenses. Because you don't charge utilities, you don't charge any administration or things like that. So it's a percentage that we can take and put in another fund and use for different operations. So
Like an administration fund?
yeah.
If it's whatever it is to administer the grant?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the cost of us doing
Right.
business for grants, and then in turn we can use that for different operational pieces. It has a lot of flexibility.
But I understand it could be used for salaries in any program not directly related to the grant, is my understanding. Isn't that
Can
correct?
be used for all operations. Operations being salaries.
Okay.
I know it's always changing, and obviously grants are changing yearly. What is kind of an average amount we receive per year into the indirect cost fund? I know I should have asked you that earlier in an email. but-
I would have to go back and
Okay.
look at that.
Yeah,
It
if you
has
could get us that
varied.
information.
It has varied, and our indirect rates have varied, so I'll have to get that information. for
Yeah,
you.
just kind of a general average, maybe over the last couple of years, just to give us an idea.
Okay.
And the same question for Fund 296, Medicaid reimbursement. Is that something we get every year?
It is something that we get every year, and that's related to the work that we do. We can claim for those workers that work in certain situations, and we go back and reimburse for that from Medicaid eligible costs. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, how much we get per year in that too
Okay.
would be helpful. Thank you.
So could that Medicaid, the 296, could that be used for the SPED extra costs that we're getting?
Yes.
Roush, this is an overview of where our revenues coming from, but this isn't a new money tree per se, right? This is
Yes, this is a list of our reserves. It's not really a revenue report. The question was asked about the reserves. So I didn't list it by revenues.
I'm wondering, because in order to get money in there, some revenue requires revenue. So just to understand better how the flow of revenue is coming on an annual basis, so we can understand, you know, what those funds are going to look like, and if we chose to consider using those funds for some things, you know, what the restraints are on them. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I've identified those in the comments column.
Right.
So Dr. Chestnut, I have a question for you. On the preliminary budget highlights, these are recommendations that you are recommending. On the very first, the budget, preliminary 2015 budget highlights.
We haven't formalized those into recommendations yet. We have talked about, at the bottom of that page, the district-wide tech and the academic focus. Those actually were two of the recommendations from the worksheet we were looking at our previous board meeting. We didn't include it in this board packet, but those two, that would be the case. And then, so the next one too, the additional bus, we do think we need an additional bus, and we haven't really talked about that before tonight. So this isn't officially a recommendation sheet, it's kind of a highlight sheet, but we are prepared to bring back more of a recommendation type form next time. We were kind of thinking the idea of our discussion tonight would just be to talk big picture, entire budget for tonight.
And I have some feedback for you as you go through that process. Obviously, we're all very happy that we're in a position where we're talking about revenue increases. It's been a long time since we've been in that position. But our discussions to date as it relates to the new budget are surrounded around revenue increases and expenditure increases, and nothing about expenditure decreases. I know we've spent a lot of years cutting, and a lot of fat is gone, that's for sure, but we spend $15 million plus or minus in monies outside the classroom, and I can't help but to think that there's not some opportunities for getting even a little leaner. And for every 1% that we can save outside the classroom, that's effectively 3 teachers that we can move into the classroom. So I'd like to see us sharpen our pencils if we can, and figure out some opportunities for some savings as well.
Any other questions or for Dr. Chestnut or Aaron on this item?
I would just like to say that as we continue in the budget process, I know that we're expecting charter funds, and that situation has changed, and so therefore some of the recommendations from a lot of the recommendations from the budget committee are not feasible. But I would like to see us strive to do as many as possible and above and beyond what's being suggested currently. And so I just would suggest that we look at our some of these funds and our reserves and DAA and look and really, along with any potential cuts to non-classroom programs, to see, you know, where we can really improve our in-classroom experience for our students. I said it 3 weeks ago, and I'll say it again because we had Saddleback here today, and they are the 6th elementary school to tell us that one of their major issues is class sizes. And I have a hard time when they come up here, and you know, we have high expectations for them to raise student achievement levels. And if every one of them tells us that high class sizes is the problem and we don't do everything we can to reduce their class sizes, well then next year when they come, if they're not meeting our expectations, we have fault in that because we're not giving them the tools they need. And so I would just really implore the administration to look and see, you know, where we can find, you know, some opportunities to reduce those class sizes.
Anything else? All right. Do you have enough information to go forward? Okay. All right, item D, review of information from the Override Recommendation Committee. Dr. Chestnut.
It's right there. Called together a committee, invited about 30 people to attend an Override Recommendation Committee, and many of them had been on the Budget Committee. Just finished that, and told them they didn't have to continue, but some of them did. Tried to get some new people in there. Had about 15 people show up, and we did it in about 2 meetings. And so these are just some of the things we talked about, some of the highlights, and just wanted to give you a flavor of that. We started by looking at what was the, make sure I'm starting with the first slide here. Yes, we are. We started by looking at what was the budget proposal, or the ballot, I'm sorry, the override ballot proposal from November 2012, the last time this was on the ballot. So just to refresh your memory, that was for a 5% override for 2 years to fund 3 things. Class size reduction, we figured about 13 additional teachers. Number 2, instructional technology for classrooms, about $400,000. And number 3, salary improvement for teachers and support staff. When we advertised it, we actually were a little more specific. We had 5 bullet points, but 2 of them had to do with technology, and then we had the salary listed, certified and support staff. It didn't include administration. But really, it's 3 big buckets that we targeted. And then the result was a 43% yes. And I'd like to remind people that that wasn't a 23% yes. It was only 7% away, plus 1 vote from passing. And if you'll recall, the way the numbers worked out on that, the tax rate per $1,000 was 57.5 cents of the assessed valuation, as one of our previous speakers tonight reminded us, not the same as retail value. That means the annual tax on a $100,000 home is $57.50 per year. So that's about $5 a month. And that would have brought in revenue of $1.35 million for 2 years. So that was the proposal. So that kind of informed our discussion. We looked at a lot of other information as well, but what we came up with was kind of a range of options. I mean, there's not any one recommendation here, and we're going to have to refine this as we go along, depending on how tonight's discussion goes. A large number of members of the committee felt like we should run a 15% override for 7 years. That wasn't totally unanimous, and there was a range of opinion there. The main opinion range was from 10% to 15%, somewhere in there, from 5 to 7 years. But early on, we did talk about the idea of the possibility of a percentage as low as 5, with the idea being that the proposal that failed in 2012 was a 5%, and we didn't pass it, right? So the question comes down to what can we put on the ballot that has a good chance of passing? And that's kind of the million-dollar question that the board has to answer. And we're not going to decide it tonight, I wouldn't think, but it's going to need some discussion to kind of talk that through. We had a pretty good idea. The committee's recommendation to me was that we should fund 4 basic things: class size reduction, additional teachers for the purpose of class size reduction, instructional technology, number 2, number 3, elementary gifted programs and secondary honors programs. We have some of those, but the idea is we need more. And then number 4, support for fine arts, foreign language, PE, extracurricular activities, and athletics. One of the themes of the discussion was that these are the types of programs that Kyrene and Tempe Union High School District offer, and that's the reason why 900 students get on 16 buses a day and drive up to those districts. Those are the kinds of things that they are able to get there in greater quantity than we have here. And that was the gist of the discussion. You will notice that there is not a salary improvement listed, and that was a pretty conscious decision. It was on the last proposal. We heard a lot of criticism of that, and we felt like, even though it's an important issue, that's going to be something that shouldn't be on the override proposal as far as the recommendation from the override recommendation committee. Those are the 4 main areas. And I'm kind of rolling here. I'd be glad to take any questions as I go here. So just to remind you what those ranges look like. So if we considered a 5% rate, our rate would continue to be at 57.5 cents. Assessed value since the last election has really gone down about 1%, so the numbers are going to be virtually identical this time around if it's on the ballot. If we ran a 15% override, that would be $1.73 per thousand of assessed valuation. So on a $100,000 home, if it was a 5%, it would be the $57.50 like we talked about earlier, and a 15% override would cost $173 per year on a $100,000 home. And then that's the range of revenue that it would bring in down below. So those were the big picture discussion items that we talked about in the committee, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
The committee, they were okay with that $174. I mean, some of the houses are, $200,000, $250,000 homes. And what was their input on that?
Well, it was a pretty ambitious committee, as you can tell. And yes, that was their number one recommendation. The number two recommendation was 10%. But I have to say, it is difficult to get fiscal conservatives to come to committee meetings. I mean, seriously, we invited a number of them, and we had a couple of them attend. But when it comes down to the final voting and the final recommendations, sometimes, the conservative voices aren't in the room, and not because they weren't invited. So I have to admit that that's a factor here, okay? And that's something that I think ultimately the board has to decide where, if the board decides to go with a proposal, what is the board comfortable with? And I'm happy to bring back some recommendations. I think my preference would be, assuming the board wants to continue this discussion, I'd be happy to bring you back option A, B, and C with my favorite recommendation. I don't have that for you tonight, but I'd be happy to bring that back next time.
Well, we did discuss the difference between the 10% and the 15%. When you broke it out into a monthly basis, it was like $14 a month. Or in this case, if it was double to 200,000, it would be $28 a month more. So when we broke it down to a month, and when we looked at the options, and we looked at what a 15% override would bring in, 4.5 million, or 4.05. And we looked at what we had anticipated if we had had fully charter funding, which would 3.7 million. So you're not that far off of what we had anticipated on having. And in order for us to continue to grow, to be those schools of choice, and to have local control over our money, we really felt that it was important that we go for the 15%, so that we can reduce those class sizes, we can continue moving forward with our academic focuses and have those extra offerings of academics and the fine arts and the foreign languages. Because, as it's been stated, we do a great job with what we have. If we had more, think of what we could do. We will be that A district, and we'll get there faster if we have the funding for it.
Go ahead, Mrs. Moore.
I have a technical question. 10% or 15%, is that per year or total over the life of the thing?
That's
Per year.
Very nice.
But we need to remember that people get their tax bills all at one time. So they're not seeing $14 a month. They're seeing, that added on. So I just need to take that into consideration.
Well, and that's something that whatever committee takes on, if we decide to go with an override and we have that yes committee, it's all about how they market it. They have to be able to market that information so that it's clear what the costs are, what the benefits are going to be, what we're actually putting the money to. All these items that Dr. Chestnut shown are all to the classroom. It's all to the classroom. It's all to the students, and that's what's important.
Okay, Dr. Chestnut, me personally, I would like to see options A, B, and C and go forward with this information so that we can have this conversation with more detail. Board members, any other requests on information that you'd like?
If we haven't already, I would suggest soliciting some analysis from a professional in terms of elections, because we can want and hope and need all day long, but we have to be able to win an election. And same speech I give every time we have this conversation, but we got walloped last year or 2 years ago, and before that, and before that, and before that. So there's certainly, if I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't believe in the investment in education, and that's why I want to make sure that there is a path to victory here. This endeavor will take a significant amount of resources. It'll take the district writing a check for one to make it happen, but there's a lot of human capital that's going to be engaged in this process as well that we need to be mindful of. So again, if this is the direction that the board decides to go in, I encourage the board to make sure that it does so with eyes wide open, and that at the end of the day, you got to get the majority of the votes in the November election. So
Dr. Chestnut, can I also ask that when you bring this back, I'm assuming on the next agenda item, that those committee members who are committed to promoting this, could they come and kind of do a 5-minute presentation on what their game plan idea is? So we can see what their path is, or what their,
Sure, we can work on that.
how they're going to sell it?
And just to clarify for anybody watching on television, we're very aware of Arizona state law as far as promotion activity, and we're very aware that school district staff cannot use school equipment or school time to promote the Vote Yes campaign. We can provide information, we'll do that, and that's why there is last time the committee was called Maricopa Cares, and as employees, we can work with that committee in our free time, but not during the school day. So I know you all understand that, but I want to make sure everybody knows that we understand that.
And have we contacted Expect More Arizona, because they do help with overrides?
We have talked to them about this in the past, but not recently, but
Okay.
that's a group we can contact as well.
Okay. Okay, I look forward to more information.
Okay.
Got it?
Got it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda. Do we have any motions? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Yes.
Do we have representatives from Midstate Energy in the audience, so thank you, Ponfield, for being here, and Randy, so don't have to say anything because it passed.
Yeah, I know. He's been shooting spitballs over there. All right, that brings us to 7A. Mr. Beckett, our HR schedule.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board, Dr. Chestnut. You have the personnel schedule in front of you tonight, and I, once again, will answer any questions you have right now.
I just have one, Mr. Beckett.
Yes.
Now, this isn't a complete list of all the teachers that have not turned in their contract, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
We hope to have that, well, our contracts have now passed their due date, so we're actually compiling that list, and it's relatively short.
Yay.
So,
So that'll be on the next agenda item, or next
on the
meeting?
28th, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
the extension of the TOSA contract from a 10-month to an 11-month?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell us the rationale behind that, and is the differential, is it 10%? Is that what
That's
that number
correct, yes.
represents?
The rationale, and again, I wish one of the middle school principals were here to talk to this, but there is a significant amount of planning and additional administrative work that goes on prior to the beginning of the school year and also afterwards. And the TOSA takes on that kind of quasi-assistant principal position at the middle school sites, and it is important. We found that out this year as we scaled back, that the principals needed that extra support. So that was one of the reasons why they suggested it, and we're bringing it to you tonight for that approval.
Is this the first of several then, or is this just one of one?
Just one of one. I'm sorry, which number specifically, Mr.
37.
Oh, I apologize. No, that particular employee actually is functioning as a CTE counselor presently, and we're moving that position to from her present position as a 10-month to an 11-month because of the kind of retasking of the Director of Assessment and CTE's position to more of a district-level data assessment position. I don't know, it's Mr. Nielsen's position is what we're changing, and this particular individual will assume more of the responsibilities of the day-to-day operations at the high school for the CTE programs. and there's some additional work that needs to come as a result of that. I apologize, I misunderstood your question.
Currently, are they currently on a?
10-month contract.
And are we considering moving them to 11 month?
No, we're not, I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Beckett? Go ahead.
What's the net result with the transition from of our CTE administrator from a dollars perspective? Because we're a little bit of shuffling in that regard, right?
There is no change in this,
Or motions for Mr. Beckett?
I move that we approve the HR schedule.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Beckett.
Thank you.
And it's nice to have this earlier. We're getting better, don't you think? All right, 7B, discussion and possible approval of Arizona School Board Association Delegate Assembly, the political agenda, proposed issues for the fiscal year 2015. I asked this to be put on the agenda. I'll be on the legislative committee again, and we meet on June 6th. So this is all kind of the preliminary, any ideas that we have that we want to present to the legislative committee, and then what we do is we take all those ideas. Last year we had 100 pages of proposals and ideas from school districts, and then we take all the proposals that are in common and we focus on those that we see generally over and over and over again. That's going to be a majority of what the needs are of all the school districts. So I did have submit this by the 24th. So we need to come up with some changes, or that we like the way it is, or we want to move, these things from short-term to session-specific. We want to move these things from long-term to session-specific.
Well, this says the 28th.
Which is that, but by 5 o'clock.
So you want them from us by the 24th, so you can submit them by the 28th, okay.
Well, even if it's that morning, but when we meet, it has to be to ASBA before that.
And we meet on the 24th. No.
28th.
We meet on the 28th?
We meet on the 28th at 6:30 here in the boardroom.
Why would they do it on a Wednesday?
So do we have board approval for our suggestions that you then take to? So we
Yes.
have to vote on
Yeah.
this tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
So Lisa has the form, and really this could just be a conglomeration of all different ideas. If you've got an idea that you want this to be on short term, put it down. I mean, it's not going to hurt to submit as many as we think are going to be accomplished to move our state forward.
Well, that's simple. Restore district charter funding. Hello.
There you go. Problem
Yeah.
solved.
That's simple.
Reinstate district charter.
Yeah, reinstate the district charter funding
Absolutely.
for districts that chartered before, was it July 1st, 2013?
I mean, I say reinstate it, period.
For 2014.
Yeah.
For 2014.
Yeah,
So you're asking to reinstate charter funding
for public.
For everybody.
for public,
Sponsored.
District-sponsored,
Right.
district-sponsored charters.
recognized district-sponsored charters for July 2014, and not, because what they did is they used July,
They used July 2013.
yes,
Right.
2013 is what they were the cutoff, that's why we couldn't do it.
correct.
And they're letting us go one more year, but anybody that wanted to charter
Afterwards,
can't.
yeah.
So they
And we
should.
lose ours.
And we lose ours. So I think, that should be one of the proposals, and that would be session-specific, that we reinstate the charter funding.
By what date?
By May 28th. I'm just kidding.
No, that we,
Yeah, I know.
that it goes back, that we're not ineligible anymore. So move it back to July.
Turn the decision back over, correct, the way it was going before, and just go back to the way the state was allowing public schools to turn charter and let everyone have that opportunity if they choose to.
So number 9 on this year's is protect the right of districts to charter schools. I think it's along those lines. I think
Yeah.
but now it's reinstate
now-
the right
right.
of districts to charter schools.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to put a date, because if we say just to instate the ones that, along with us, that got taken away, well, then all of those other public
Right.
schools out there who may want to charter are going to be like, well, we
Exactly.
don't support that because.
But I think we
don't
should
have an
put the
opportunity.
funding part in there.
Yes, sure.
We should
absolutely.
reinstate the funding for
Yes,
charter schools.
Okay, so reinstate that.
Reinstate public charter school funding.
Yes.
Got that?
For districts.
And then you should advocate against the expansion of the ESAs.
Which is on there, so you want to move that to session specific.
I would move that to
Yeah,
session
I
specific.
agree.
Yeah, because that's on long-term, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It needs to be moved.
You know, we talked about an override. There's number 3 at the bottom there. The language should change to local support to better reflect that voters are being asked to support. That might be a really good thing to look into, too.
Well, that was
Because-
on the session this year, correct?
Okay.
Yes,
So-
you're talking about override to local support?
Right,
Yeah.
because
Number 3.
override just sounds so,
Right.
you know,
Did it pass?
No.
No.
okay.
So we can leave that out there. That would be a
Okay.
good thing to
Yeah,
leave
that
on.
one.
since we're talking about marketing this override and, you know, all this verbiage of override, maybe that might be a different way of presenting it to the voters out there.
And I would like them to move the fund all-day kindergarten from short-term to session-specific.
Which we did this year
Yeah,
at the last minute.
at the last minute.
Okay. Okay. So funding all-day kindergarten?
I think so.
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely, that's important.
yeah. We want to be
And we
funded
are
for what
our
the
babies,
program we're implementing.
Mrs.
sure.
Hahn, are you getting all this babbling? Are we?
One, I think would be good to move from long-term to immediate or session-specific, is require the same accountability measures of all schools and individuals that receive public funds.
I was going to suggest
Yeah.
that, because one that came over and over and over again, I looked through all of the proposals from last year. It was ensure all schools receiving state dollars are held to the same standards, accountability, and transparency, whether public or charter.
Yes.
And I think that, because we can fight ESAs all we want to, but I think that if you accept public funds, you should follow the public rules.
Absolutely.
And I would like to see that on session specific.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we've got all-day kindergarten, state-funded all-day kindergarten, same rules. And then the other one that came up over and over again was provide adequate funding for technology needed for the online park assessment.
Wasn't that already session-specific?
Well,
They
Oh,
charged
no,
us.
that's right, it didn't.
yeah,
They implement it, but they charge us.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was one that was going to be on the session-specific. Yeah, it is on the session-specific. Fund the implementation costs of Arizona's new standard assessments in technology.
Yes, it
And I
is.
think it should stay there.
I think it should, yep.
Mr. Bartle, did you have anything?
Session-specific, yes, I would add, implement a meaningful, effective performance pay plan, and also add, amend ARS 15-816.01 to have an enforcement mechanism to it.
So
And-
accountability?
Yes. And that is that is a statute that allows school districts to poach each other's kids. And so it's not a good use of taxpayer money. And, but right now, there's no teeth in that statute anyway. So if nothing else, leave the statute as it is, but at least add some teeth to it so that there's.
Accountability, that they have to follow it. Okay?
Sure.
To our main list. Okay? Anybody have anything else or any other suggestions for moving stuff around?
Just the other two I have are for the
Okay.
short term that aren't already included. One is to remove regulation that unnecessarily requires us to,
Thank you. Well, thank you. I appreciate your input. All this will be compiled into one major document, and then on the 6th, we'll sweat it out for a full day and come up with the final recommendations, and then those recommendations will come back to us. We'll approve them or not approve them. It's up to us. And then that will come to our final document, which we have our delegate assembly in September. So We're a little bit earlier, which is nice. We're able to talk about it and think about it. But I think it's important that we stay involved in this legislative process. So, any other questions for me or the process or anything? Thank you. I appreciate you. Go ahead.
I just want to make sure Lisa got all this stuff, because I didn't write it down.
No, she did. And then
Thank you.
Scott's got his, Mr. Bartle. All right.
That's always better.
Number that we present, it doesn't have to be 3 in each category?
Not at this point. Mm-mm. We can submit as many as we want, and then it's all compiled into one big document, and then we just go through it. And that way we see how many schools came up with the same issues. Yes?
When it's all compiled in one big document, we can't add or change anything after that. We just kind of have to go along with what these. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Well, we can attempt to do it.
Right, I understand.
So thank you for the input and the information. I appreciate it. It's helpful. So you'll give yours to Mrs. Hahn.
I promise.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right, it's a long process, and I appreciate it. All right, motion 8. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. It is 8:29. Thank you. We'll see you on the 28th.